First of all, thank you, Ludmilla, for introducing me. It's one of the real privileges of this award is to have someone who has done so much and mattered so much be the person who introduces you to me. First thing I want to say is that, let's see if I can make things work. A huge thank you to this community. Basically, I came to this community as the sage on the stage, absolutely conventional, absolutely straight-laced, rigorous and disciplined instructor that we now caricature now that we know better, and you are the people who've taught me to know better. The bad part about that is that there isn't a whole lot I can tell you about education that you don't already know. But since there are a lot of students here, I'm going to aim my pitch particularly at you. But first, as I say, I've got so many people to thank. It isn't funny. A few of the people to mention is Ludmilla, Vicki Moore, Cheryl Bailey, who took over and was chair of EPD for 6 years, John Tanzi, and Joe Provo. And by the way, Joe is running for council. And as a good Chicagoan, vote early, vote often for Joe. We need representation in the membership of this society. We need voices, and I highly recommend Joe. Regina Stevens-Truss, who it was just a wonderful thing when she asked me to work with her on the Hopes Outreach Project many years ago. Adele Wolfson, one of the pioneers of the ASBMB education community and a winner of a Sustained Leadership Award this year. For some reason, they did not have the wisdom to schedule Adele for a talk. Considering they could have kicked me out and put her here, that probably would have been a smart choice on their part, but they decided to go with the high-risk route. Suzanne Barber, who is part of the beginnings of getting accreditation going. Deborah Martin, who's been with us for the whole time. Diane Dean, who retired to Belize and has removed all images from the internet that I could find, but has been wonderful. Dan Dries, who is one of the founders of the iCable network, along with Vicki, that Ludmilla and I are a part of. Just a few more. Erica Offerdahl, who is just amazing. She is our true expert on assessment and the like, and incredibly giving of her time and expertise to us. Ben Cantwell and Quinn Vega were both members of the original gang of 12 that got accreditation launched. Jim Forney was one of the first people to join as a screener of applications. Mike Carastro, who has just been an enthusiastic and creative and incredibly positive force in this group for years. Mike Borland has got a lot of Mike's traits, and there are so many others to mention, but I don't want to just mention faculty. The staff at ASBMB has been incredible over the entire time. I mean, I've been involved in this for about 16 years now. We started out with Wei Zhao. Erica Gaborge is here. In other capacities, she's moved on to bigger and better things. Kira Jazan is here at the meeting, and the current director of the education portfolio, Dr. Kirsten Block, is here, and the support we've gotten from them, the hours of work they put in on our behalf has just been amazing over the years and has been essential to us. And there are two people I especially want to recognize. Ellis Bell is really the founder of this community. This community existed in a nascent form for a while, but it was when Ellis became chair of EPD, he was a man on a mission. And so everything we see here, the foundation, the rock upon which it was built, was established by Ellis. And Ellis was one person who recruited me into this wonderful community. We had been on a grant panel together, and for some reason he remembered me, and he had a seat to fill on education professional development, and he asked me to fill it. And the thing that Ellis did is he taught us to dare. Scientists tend to be conservative, tend to think incrementally, and Ellis was like, go for it. What is it you want? Don't sit there going, well, what can we kind of do? No, dream it, work for it, and go for it. And that has been just tremendous. It's had a tremendous influence on me, I think, on this whole community. And then Barbara Gordon, who was our patron saint, who was the chief executive officer of the society for the formative years when Ellis and then I and Cheryl Bailey were successive chairs of EPD, and even when we were doing things and we started going, oh, maybe we aren't going to be able to do this, she believed in us. And that was important because that's where we got the money to do things. And so she supported us even when the people at the top didn't necessarily support us, and at times when we got discouraged with ourselves, she just was solid every step of the way, and we owe as a community so much to her. Being a scientist, I decided first thing we should do is remember William C. Rose, for whom this award is named, whose family made the donations that fund this award. He was born in Greenville, North Carolina in 1887, BS at Davidson College, PhD at Yale. And you gotta understand, he gets his PhD in 1911. Michaelis and Menton are publishing in 1911. It's going to be a decade before anyone proves that a protein could be the source of enzyme activity. And so when it comes to biochemistry, there was a lot of basic research to be done, and he made his mark studying the roles of amino acid metabolism and nutrition. He was the one who identified the dietarily essential amino acids in animals, and in doing so, he was the one who discovered the amino acid threonine, sort of like the Pluto of the first 21 amino acids, apparently. And the reason that he's associated with this award, I mean, he's been elected to the National Academy of Sciences, he was a former president of ASBMB, then ASBC, recipient of the award of the National Medal of Science, was because in 2 occasions at UT Galveston and at the University of Illinois, he served, in the case of Galveston, as the founder of their biochemistry department, and at the University of Illinois, he spent 33 years, and he was known for transforming student training in biochemistry at the University of Illinois and turned it into a model for training biochemists. And so he's had a deep commitment to education that we honor here today. Okay, now to the part that I mentioned at the beginning. So, how do you define success? I mean, all of us get into this career, all of us pursue this because we want to be successful. Well, you know, if you think about me as midway through my college career, just after I've started my beard, but before I go into my hippie stage and grow out the stuff on top, that's my friend Ken Haydick of 54 years, sitting next to me, he's the one with the glasses. It was like to get my name in a textbook, right? To have a Kennelly something to go with the Krebs cycle or the Diels-Alder reaction or, you know, Sanger's reagent, that is really making it. That's sort of being historic. And so in my naive way, you think, well, what do I need to succeed to, you know, realize that dream? And it's like, I've got to be brilliant. right? I've got to make a discovery. Something amazing has to happen. And what do I need to do that? I need to have a really big brain. And what does it mean to have a really big brain? What is the tangible evidence of that? Scores. Scores on exams. Scores on papers. And especially my GPA, that if I get straight A's, right? If I'm at the top of my class, then I'm the one with the biggest brain, and so I'm the one that has the best chance of realizing my destiny. And this is what I refer to as big brain tyranny, is you sit around the classroom and go, oh, that person's a brain. And well, I'm not, my QCA is, 2.9 stuff. I'm never gonna do anything great, but it'll be okay. Well, time and experience have taught me a lot, as well as reading the history of our science on and off, and I've revised my view of the world from when I was 20-ish or so, and I realized that scientific progress is rarely something that happens in a vacuum, that, you've got a brain in a bell jar that comes up with something, some sort of brainstorm, that basically advances in science start with an observation or a conversation that provokes in the mind of the person involved a question. And these questions, there's no machine that can churn these out. These questions are individual. They reflect who you are. They are directed by your curiosity. They're polished, the lens of it, by your training experience. They're focused by your interactions with others. They're magnified by your imagination. And notice, IQ, GPA, none of this falls in there. That if you are curious about the world, if you're observant, if you think about it, if maybe you talk about it with others, you have the chance to do something important and generate new knowledge. You have the chance to inch the ball forward. Basically, I think of science as sort of a giant game. And so you have all these Jeopardy categories, but they don't actually have names on them. And you gotta flip the square over, right, to get the answer to start moving forward. And which square gets picked depends upon the individual involved. Everybody here asks different questions that are unique. Knowledge doesn't come into being most of the time until someone there asks the question. And every one of you in this room are well equipped to do so. We all share the characteristics needed to be curious about the world and to ask questions about the world. And I would argue that curiosity and being observant and imaginative and not doctrinaire, all of those things rank well before any sort of intellectual prowess in their importance to being someone who actually is an explorer and a generator of new knowledge. There are 1,000 different ways to succeed. There are millions of possible questions. And many of them are uniquely yours. So my bottom line is twofold in nature. The students, number of ways to succeed is nearly infinite. It's as many as there are of you here. And none of it's tied to some single number, whether it be an MCAT or a GRE, or a GPA. Each of you has an intrinsic capacity to ask the questions that are going to show the way to new knowledge. So embrace that. That is your superpower. However, that doesn't mean you can go home and go, I don't need to finish school because I'm curious and just ask questions. I mean, as Pasteur said, chance favors the prepared mind. And seeking out the answers is actually more fun than coming up with the questions. And so if you want the really juicy, wonderful part of the game, there's a certain amount of education and training you need. But work on being the best you and not looking across the room and going, oh, that guy, that girl, that person is smarter, faster, whatever than me, because that's just a futile exercise. To the educators, what I've come to realize is that we've developed a curricula that trains students to be great at answering questions or selecting answers to questions. However, we don't spend a lot of time on the first part of the process, on generating questions, on going from observation to inquiry. And I think that's something we need to be more intentional about, helping students develop their powers of observation, to notice the things that stick out, to drill through the noise and find the key fact or the key issue. And this is a communal process. We rarely work in a vacuum. Bouncing ideas back and forth is one of the best ways to develop your questions. And that means by nature, we've got to provide more nuanced and multidimensional data and get out of this winners and losers game. You guys get the A's and the rest of you, well, that was nice. Some of you won the GPA lottery and the rest of you are losers. It's like, no. It's not tied to GPA. GPA doesn't measure half of what I've talked about today. And so, we need to evaluate students based on how they progressed relative to who they were yesterday and the day before, rather than ranking them as above or below the people sitting next to them or across from them. And so that's my 15 minutes of babbling. The thing I always tell students when they arrive at the department that I will leave you with is, there's no bad day being a student or a faculty member or being a research scientist. That lab we're working and learning in is a literal $1 million playground, and someone else bought the toys. Thank you very much for your attention.